All right, Council Club time once again. It's October 7th, and we have kind of a short agenda this evening. But thanks everyone for showing up. For those of you who don't know Council Club, the goal is to just kind of demystify the City Council agenda every week. We go through what has happened this current week at City Council last Tuesday, and then we look ahead to what's happening next week. But last week's meeting was only 25 minutes. It was like really, really short. And next week is Indigenous Peoples Day, Columbus Day. So City Council isn't having a meeting on Tuesday. So there isn't actually an agenda for us to be reviewing for next week. So we will just kind of breeze through some of our notes here. And then as usual, casual, jump in at any time. But we were kind of, you know, even though it was only a 25-minute meeting, we were kind of expecting that Larry would get up and say something. He speaks at pretty much every single meeting, and he didn't. There was actually no public commentary from anyone. You know, they always have testifying options, proponent, opponent, whatever. No one aside from the like applicants, you know, the developers or whatever were there for the most part, but no public testifiers. So it was kind of a short and boring meeting. The only thing that was like a little bit interesting on number 7, it was like a replat application. No one showed up from the developers or none of the applicants showed up, and the planning department was like, we don't like that. We would like it if you would show up. And not just the planning department, but the city council. Amy Melton specifically was like, it'd be nice if someone was here. And everyone agreed. And so it sounds like maybe the planning department is going to recommend that they change some wording so that the applicants actually have to show up. Anything else on that?
No, I mean, we were talking just about how, like at the budget hearing, you know, 40 people showed up, and it kind of felt like it fallen upon deaf ears. And then sort of transitioning to the redistricting, all those redistricting hearings that they had in Grand Island, Lincoln, and Omaha. Everyone talked about not splitting Douglas County. They eventually did not split Douglas County, but it just kind of feels like they invite the public to speak, and then when they don't listen to us, they wonder why no one shows up. Or they're kind of like, oh wow, like it's weird. And then it's really interesting when the applicants don't show up. And Melton said that she wasn't going to hold it over, because in the past, if you don't show up for your liquor license application, they won't vote on it, and they'll kind of make fun of you. They'll be like, hey, I know so-and-so, I was at that bar last week, or I met with the applicant last week, like he knows today something must have gone on, and they'll lay it over for a week. But the rezoning one, she said, I'm not going to lay it over because this is an important rezoning or whatever. So it passed 7-0, but yeah, Melton was pissed. It was pretty interesting. But so just speaking of Melton, Tuesday was her opportunity for opening remarks, and she chose to talk about the weather, which is actually, it's on the bingo card, as like, which is, to me, is like completely meaningless. Like, you're just putting words in the air. Like, the weather's great. She said get out there and go to a park. I think she's actually right on a trail,
Yeah,
which I assume.
Well, yeah, I was going to say she did like give a shout out to trails.
Yeah.
And being outside and walking. So
Yeah, I know.
That part's good.
But yeah, just
The weather.
The
was all
weather.
she had to come
yeah,
up
it was
with.
like an early bingo. For being such a short meeting, I think we almost did get a bingo just
Yeah.
for that alone. But
Even without the center square.
Larry not
being
talking
there.
is detrimental. He's
Yeah,
the
it was
center
like
square.
shocking. He was there. We saw his. I think he was wearing his red hat like he likes to do.
Yeah, and at the end of the meeting, he gets up to talk to, I think, Council Member Begley, and you see the sheriff follow him up there, be like, hey, what are you doing, Larry? And they had words and then walked away. But that was like literally the most excitement.
Yeah,
Oh,
there
then-
was nothing. I mean, the Festerson.
Yeah, so Festerson abstained from Bergen Mercy, which is CHI. They're asking for a special billing rate for sewer service. And so I talked to the conflict of interest NADC general counsel. He actually picked up the phone. And he said that a lot of time, even if there was the appearance of conflict of interest, that politicians will abstain when they don't have to. And he said it is confusing. And also he said that specifically with Council Member Johnson, that whenever she abstains from a Union Pacific agenda item, that she is not going to financially benefit if Union Pacific gets a right of way or is allowed to put another railroad crossing. Like, she is just an employee. And I know that Festerson is a vice president but he's not going to financially benefit from a new sewer billing rate. So I kind of feel like it was confusing, not a conflict of interest, but it makes him look good. So yay to go, Festerson. You get a little clap.
And then we talk about conflicts of interest, I feel like almost every week, but I think the Begley thing with the labor federations and all that, and like hooking his brother up with anyway, it seems like maybe sometimes there are conflicts of interest where they don't abstain from votes, and then others that seem like no big deal they do. So it's just kind of interesting how they all play politics in their own way. But that was like literally everything on our meeting minute notes. Did anybody else catch anything exciting from last week? Or not last week, last meeting, this week? Tuesday.
So Chewy had a TIF proposal. Chewy is Dr. Aaron Tincture's husband, Matthew Kavanaugh. He works for Holy Name Development Housing. And so yeah, he was there. Chewy was there. But Dr. Aaron wasn't live tweeting. You didn't live tweet it. Anton was a minute late. It was it was a quick and
under a half an hour. I don't know if
missed it.
there's ever been that short a one. It seemed absurdly quick, but and I think they were just like feeling excited almost about like a long weekend because they don't have one next weekend. So they figure if they make this one short, then they get a whole bunch of free time. But since there isn't anything happening next Tuesday as far as city council, there is an NRD meeting. So Begley will actually be able to go to his other job.
And I think those are public. They're subcommittee meetings. They're typically, it's the second Thursday and then the previous Tuesday, basically second Tuesday. So there's a meeting Thursday at 4 and then Tuesday at 4. But I wanted to ask Eric Williams, who works the NRD, it'd be interesting to go. We've never been to one.
Yeah.
And also just to see if Begley shows up, because this would be the one meeting he can actually be at and not at the city council at the same time. So that's this Tuesday. And then speaking of upcoming meetings, there's a library meeting right now. We were talking earlier how Jane Skinner is live tweeting it. It is not streamed, but we think Channel 3 News is there recording it.
Yeah.
But I also saw on Twitter how they were specifically saying this is not about privatizing the library. So I don't know if they're going to be calling people out of order for saying the word privatization, because I feel like if you say that word in front of the mayor, she'll call you a liar, and that there is no plans to privatize. She actually had a press conference this afternoon, sort of announcing that Matt Kuzi, who's been the city attorney for almost a year when Paul Kratz left last year. I guess it would have been in November.
December's what you're meant to say.
Okay, December, yeah. I just remember it was right when Colleen Brennan got appointed. And if Paul Kratz would have been there, he would have told Councilmember Rich Pauls not to vote and not to be involved. But because he left right around that time, Matt Kuzi, it was my first interaction with the city attorney. He was like, I'm not familiar with those statutes you're bringing up. And I'm like, I remember that was his answer. It's like, I'm not familiar with it. I'm just like, it's your job to be familiar with, like, I'm literally researching this stuff on my own, and he's not familiar with it. So he's now our new city attorney. He's usually he sits behind Festerson usually. So he's been there for basically last year. But anyways, going back to the Stothert press conference, it was announcing that Matt Kuzi is now the new city attorney. But then she quickly pivoted to talking about the city charter, and then also I don't know how to talk about the library, and talked about how there are rumors about privatization and rumors that are actually true about demolishing the downtown library. And man, you can find it on KUTV's Facebook, I think. It's hard to follow. And one of the interesting things was kind of keeping in line with a lack of public engagement. There were several news crews. I mean, obviously KUTV was there. I believe there was only one question was asked by the reporters, and Stothard even said, "Wow, it's a quiet bunch today. Like, no one's got any questions." And the press was just like, "No, we do not have any questions." Like, I kind of feel like, oh, it sort of seemed not necessarily a stalemate, but ever since the July 10th storm, where she came, which after she was at the golf tournament and after she won re-election, her tone has certainly just been like, I don't know, her press conferences have been, ugh.
I'm trying to share this link with everybody, but I'm gonna probably mess it up. Let me see here. If you want to
Yeah.
watch it, but
Oop.
nope, that's definitely how to become a Mode Shift member. I should share that too. Anyway, it's on the KMTV Facebook page, and it is just kind of interesting to have her basically discount what an open records request proved, which is whether or not, and I think the way that, as a lot of folks do, choose your words carefully. So she says there is no plan to privatize the library. Like, okay, maybe there's not a plan right now, but there was conversation about it, and to be just completely discounting something that was actually proven because of an open records request just seemed like extra.
And to call those emails rumors, it's like, no,
Yeah.
they were conversations that you got outed
Yeah,
and you had behind closed doors.
yeah, it's just more of the same. Believe what I say, not what I do.
Yeah. But but then going back a little bit, she did talk about the city charter, and the whole reason that they want to get Matt Kuzi in place right now is because these city charter talks, which the city charter convention, I believe, is in 2023.
Yep.
But I also think they can do it earlier, or maybe they start earlier.
They start talking about what they want to address during the charter convention. The convention is in 2023, but
Yeah.
I think they have to decide what's going to all be addressed leading up to that, which is why they wanted Kuzi in place now. And you are right that they could move it earlier if they wanted to. I doubt they'll be that proactive, but I hope I'm wrong. Maybe.
But the mayor specifically said, I had to put this in quotes, that it's a good idea to move the city elections, which is something that we have talked about a bunch. I know Mark Brennan, who was on the call last week, spoke in front of city council 2 weeks ago. And it seems to be a good idea all the way around. And then Stothard kind of walks sideways, talks out of this part of her head, and was just like, but I need to look into it before I commit to it being a good idea, even though she literally recommended it 10 years ago. So I'm going to stick with, she says it's a good idea. And then she also said that she's got a bunch of things she wants to put on the city charter. And it was kind of like, okay, like what? One of her big things is currently in the city charter, it refers to the mayor as he. And so she wants to add she or he. So it's really outdated. And then something about when she goes out of town.
Yeah. Yep.
So she has all these things that she wants to add to the city charter or modify the city charter.
And she brings up the most mundane.
And then when
silly
she
little-
talks about it, she's like, but all I pretty much want to do is update she and he. So we're going to still keep pushing for the move the city elections. I feel like we have a running list of things.
I mean, the one that
Oh,
they'll never
strong mayor.
go for is, yeah, exactly. The one that she'll of course not have any interest in is the way that our city is governed, which is currently a strong mayor form of governance. And I think that it should be strong council, because when we have as diverse and as sprawling of a city as Omaha is, it makes to me very little sense to have one human who lives in a gated community in West O making decisions for what's happening at the downtown library, for example. So that'll probably never happen, but it could be something that we could, at least try to have people start talking about. Because I think it's something where, with the charter, there's a lot of stuff that could be addressed. And so I think that it doesn't hurt to bring those ideas up to your city council person, because they send representatives to be part of the charter count or convention. I don't know. It's always just hard to know what matters. We talk about that a lot too, but there are some things that could be addressed with the update to the charter in 2023. So we should start thinking about what else we think would be cool to have addressed there. And then we could start to try to have a bigger community conversation about what could be done. But the strong mayor form of governance, I think, should go. And I also think that we need to consolidate elections. Those ones seem that the election one at least does seem doable, especially, I mean, it's, you got people on both sides of the aisle that are interested in that concept, so. Seems
Even
plausible.
Ricketts, Evidence, Bob Eviden, the Nebraska election commissioner. So yeah, it's supported from all the way around.
The other big news is county commissioner. So the applications, did you all see who all has applied? There were a lot of interesting names on there. Kimra Snipe, ran for mayor. Sarah Howard was a state representative. Who else is on there? Oh, Roger Garcia lost by like 3 votes to Boyle when the last election happened. He has applied.
Is that
Jim Thompson is, Ben Cass also ran. Yeah, Ben Cass ran for,
Smolin?
yep, in Palermo's district for council. So,
Did you say Jim Thompson?
yeah,
Okay.
yep. And here, I can actually do a screen share real quick. It's kind of, I don't know. You can, I mean, not like we get any type of actual input, but you can click through and read all of their, resumes and whatnot. So pretty good amount of folks to choose from.
And Ron Hug is he's on the Metro Community College Board at large. So we have districts, and then we also have an at-large representative. Yeah, definitely a lot of good names. And then it's interesting. So when the city council, we had the vacancy where Colleen Brennan got appointed. This time, the Douglas County Commissioners, I thought they would get chosen by the remaining members, by the 6 remaining members on the commissioners. It actually gets chosen by Don Klein, who's the county attorney, the county clerk, who is he's my favorite. Danish, thank you. And then the county treasurer. So 3 people, John Ewing, county treasurer. So those 3 people get to choose for the vacancy. So I don't even know are we allowed to
Email them with our input?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I almost emailed Dan Ash and was like, please interview these people.
Yeah.
Please don't
Yeah.
just rely on the Colleen
Coin
Brennan
toss.
method.
Yeah. Which one of them bother you the most? That's
Yeah.
how Colleen got in there.
But I mean, already by putting all the applicants on a website for us to view is already better than the Colleen Brennan. So
Yeah.
I was just like, okay, I think I have faith in
Because Dan Esch is involved. Exactly
Yeah.
right. Like he is my favorite elected official. He's so great at his job. Like I get emails from him on Sunday nights. Like he's just, I don't know, not saying that everyone should work 24/7, but he is very informative. And if you want to get on his email list, you can just email him and say, hey, I want to know what you know. And then he'll keep you posted. But it's a pretty good amount of information.
And so I saw someone asked in the chat about having at-large council members.
Mhm.
So in 1956, we used to have 7 at-large, and then in 1980, I believe, thanks to Ernie Chambers, we now have districts. And so before 1981, when we had at-large, so basically before District 2, Omaha had never had African-American city council member. And then was it Fred Connolly, I think was our first. And so basically when you get districts, specifically District 2, that was for more representation. So I think if anything, I guess Lincoln has districts and at large.
Think so. I mean, it's not an uncommon way of doing it. Actually, I remember talking with Marty Schukert not too long ago, well, within the last year or so maybe, and he also thinks that there should be at-large members in addition. I also just think it would be not a bad idea to just expand the number of city councilors that we have, because we've had 7 for a long time, and
Double it.
yeah,
That is a charter. I think that would be a charter change.
I think that yeah, I'm just getting confused about your backwards name there, Brian, but I gotcha. 11. Yeah, I mean, I think that more than 7, whether it is specific districts or whether it is some districts and then, a few more districts and at large or whatever, like I do believe that you know, a lot of times when I harass Festerson to the point that he actually finally does respond, he tells me about how busy he is. And it would be nice to have a fallback plan to email, you know, maybe an at-large counselor who would really be able to dedicate some more time to responding to constituents.
Oh, and then also we're talking about city charter. Chief of police changed to an elected position. And then there was some other one we were talking about changing to an elected position.
Oh, you're saying of our ideas. I was like, no,
Yeah.
it isn't. It's appointed. And that's fucked. But that's the point. Is yeah,
Yeah.
it should be elected, not appointed. We're also talking about how the library board could be elected instead of appointed. Because right now, you know, a lot of what we've been talking about with the library is the board is not that strong because it's all appointees. And I love Keegan, a buddy of mine who's on the board, but there's really just like not too much power on that board. Like most of her boards and commissions, she just keeps them under her thumb and doesn't give them teeth to really do much. But if it changed to elected instead of appointed, that might be a different story. Again, whether or not that will actually be something that we see.
Yeah, that's taking power from the mayor.
Right, which is clearly not her favorite. But yeah. I'm looking at the live tweets from our friend Jane here. And there's a question from our friend Nicole Wheeler, who was on the call. Was that just last week or 2 weeks ago? It's like some time ago. I don't know what time it is anymore. But she asked, because I guess it's question and answer period now. Interesting. Okay, but Nicole's question is the Community Information Trust trying to absorb the OPL Foundation and why? And then the answer from Laura Marlane, who's the chair of the board. I don't know. They say they want to help with fundraising. How and what capacity? I don't know. So I guess, like, to me, the point is whether or not there's a plan is a plan. I think, like, you know, she's really, anyway, there is conversation about it and there's confusion about it. And the library board, who supposedly makes decisions about what the freaking library does, doesn't know. And that is a problem, in my opinion. So again, whether or not there's a plan, whatever, there's a huge issue with lack of transparency and lack of communication. And that's something that is very common and very consistent throughout all departments, I feel like, with the city. And it's a bummer, but it's apparently the case within the library as well. I'm just scrolling back through some of these other tweets here.
So there's 4 more meetings. Tuesday the 12th at Millard, Thursday the 14th in South O, Monday the 18th at Abrams Branch, and then Tuesday the 19th at Washington. Which one, I guess, would ours be?
Abrams.
Abrahams. So yeah, and those are all, I think, in the evening, 7 o'clock. And they're not being live streamed. Looks like they're being live tweeted. But I saw the library today say we will not be talking about privatizing the library. So they definitely have a thing that they're not going to be talking about, but I don't think that would stop. It sounds like people are still asking questions. So.
Yeah, there's questions and answers now. At the beginning, there are like rules of, if you're going to testify, was you get 3 minutes, be respectful, and talk about the future of the services, not privatization, not past, and not whatever. But now there's, you know, and that was just like so that they could gather feedback on what, you know, is happening with the strategic plan moving forward. But it sounds like now there's just a random question and answer session at the end, which would be freaking awesome if city council did that. Like, can you imagine if we were just like, oh, I've got a question for you, you have to answer me? Because that's my biggest beef with the way that our interactions are allowed with the city council right now. You have to just address the council and you can't ask them questions, and they don't really ask you questions. They can, but they don't care. But there's just no dialogue. So I actually like there's question and answers right now, because they're saying, you mentioned the lack of funds is always an issue and a theme for many speakers. What should we do to advocate for more funding? Answer, we can't get everything we love. There has to be a balance among city departments. Yeah, the freaking police get over 1/3 of the budget. Like, when we, you know, we go and we speak at city council and we advocate for things like more libraries, more park money, more, all of these things, mental health, whatever. And they're like, nope, we don't want to listen to anything that you have to say. We're just going to keep things the way that we like them. And this is the way we like them. And then, oh, now this ARPA, like, there's more money. What do? We don't know what you want to do with the money. It's like, listen to what we have told you year after year. And that is mental health, library, housing, parks. Like, I don't know why they need another stupid survey, when if they were just listening to the feedback they've been gathering for years, they'd have a pretty good idea. Oh,
What about a study? Can we study it?
Flip this table.
So there was a good editorial someone wrote about how the library just needs to be budgeted correctly, period. And then we wouldn't have to depend on philanthropic money or raising money, because philanthropic money, as you all know, is soft control. Well, maybe not even soft control anymore. I saw something on Twitter also that Rebecca Stavick mentioned, and it's like all of a sudden they're like all into homeless people. Oh yeah, we'll get them showers, we'll get them. Seriously? I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
No, it's interesting.
So at the mayor's press conference, she talked about how the downtown library branch, they're going to make some changes. And she specifically said there's not a lot of children downtown, so we probably don't need a large children's section. And I wish someone would have said, you know, it is a lot of downtown homeless people. So how about have a homeless section? How about, like you said, how about have showers? How about have social workers?
Services, yeah.
And like, he's like, no, we're not going to do that either. We're just going to have a smaller, more modern library. She kept using the word modern. And then the whole idea, just to pivot back on the downtown branch, it is not a rumor that it's going to be destroyed. It is a done deal. It's going to be demolished because it's a great piece of property, and it's going to tie into that development, and that the new branch is not good. The new downtown branch is not going to be where the old one was. That's not a rumor. So get your rumors straight.
And also, I'm going to call it a rumor before I tell you it's not a rumor.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was quite a press conference this afternoon.
They should put the downtown library inside of City Hall in the same building.
There you go. I think that as long as it's downtown, and I mean, the thing that is also so silly with this is, like, to me, we just have this new beautiful like public asset, which is the new park, mall, whatever you want to call it. And to me, what better crowning jewel than a beautiful public library? Sure, make a new one, great. Like, make it not a waste of space, make it modern, make it whatever you want it to be, but keep it right where all this other public awesomeness is happening. To me, that makes a lot of sense. But of course, they only see dollar signs and want to sell it to Slosberg or whoever. And then, of course, those contracts will go to people that Heritage Services are. It's just all so incestuous. It's ridiculous. But
So there's another point. If she says there's no children downtown, what in the hell is the luminarium for?
that's a great point. Yeah.
That's why you're not invited to those press conferences, Cindy. Attitude like that.
With your questions, how
Yeah.
dare you? Yeah, we're
Yeah.
the Children's Museum.
None of that.
Or.
No tough questions.
Also, like, yeah, there's just so many issues with.
My working theory is that this mayor is focused a little bit too much on attracting tourism dollars and business dollars, and
And
libraries don't exactly
actually-
bring tourists.
Yeah, she can't be bothered with the people who are actual residents now. Like, why don't you just worry about keeping the people here instead of this, brain gain that you speak of? But yeah, you're right. I think she cares more about making sure Omaha looks good on TV during golf courses rather than like dealing with the people who were affected by storms, for example. Oh, I seriously get like heart palpitations when I
Oh
start talking.
no.
All right.
What's
Draw
the,
Omaha from exorbitant. Oh, interesting. Part of the new OPA.
So there's another our favorite monopole on 55th, and we call it 55th and Verizon, although it's 55th and Poppleton. But KETV did a story because Verizon put another pole in Dundee without telling anybody, and the part of the Dundee Business Improvement District, or just one of the neighborhoods, the owner of Mark's was livid. She was like, they didn't tell us. Was it? I don't even know where. It's right in front of the bank. In front of the bank. In front of Dundee Bank. Right in the sidewalk. That for those of you that are in District 1, you will be familiar with how much Fesserson basically redid all of Dundee with his own blood, sweat, and tears. And they put a monopole right in the middle of his sidewalk. It's a nice brick sidewalk too. And if it's anything,
it's right by a bike rack.
oh yeah,
That little loop with the D for Dundee Bank. It was supposed to be a bike rack, and now I think the pole's too close to it. It messes that up too.
And if it's anything like the 55th and Poppleton poll, when we went and talked to Councilmember Begley, the Mode Shift Walk With Us event, they tore up the person's yard and they were not going to do any landscaping. They said they were going to throw some grass seed down and so they had to pay, I don't know if Councilmember Begley or someone paid for a professional landscaping company to come and put down nice grass to make it look like it's not a construction zone. But I wonder with those bricks on the KTV, there's bricks missing. Like there's a pole and there's no construction barrier. It looks like
A hazard.
It's done. Like
Yeah.
it's
Yeah. And so what was upsetting to me and also not surprising is, so like at our Walk With Us event, we talked to Senator John Kavanaugh and then Councilor Begley, and they said that they were working on some sort of policy change that would entail communication. And, Begley likes to be like, communication from a communication company. Yes, that's great. Also, there needs to be an ADA plan. Like that was my bigger beef with the whole situation, is like, if you don't have an ADA plan with a timeline, you shouldn't be able to just rip out a sidewalk. So that's part of it. But what the end of the story that they just aired, I think that was just today. I retweeted it through Mode Shift's account. But Verizon's like, well, we're going to see, as long as it's not too much of a burden, I guess we can communicate about it, but we don't know if we'll be able to. So Erasmus, you're saying they're supposedly going to notify people? No, that's what they're working toward, but that's definitely not a done deal yet. So thanks for just sharing that, Brian. If you look at the end of that story, Verizon is quoted as saying, we're going to look into it. We'll see if it's not too much of a burden for us to provide communication,
and the most we can hope for is Verizon's going to tell you a day in advance, hey, we're putting a pole in your front yard tomorrow.
Yeah. Which, how helpful is that?
That's all the communication. It's not like, would you want to meet with us and potentially tell us where would be a better place, or where would, or a communication with the city be like, hey, we're going to rip out a sidewalk. No, it's all they're hoping for is to get a 1 day or a couple days notice from Verizon where they plan to put these poles. And then we can just bow down and like, thank you for telling us.
Yeah, not like communication about how it will be done or where it will be done or anything like that, but just like letting you know that it is going to happen. So to me, that does not seem like a huge win. And Verizon hasn't even agreed to say yes to that ask yet. So I guess we'll see. But
I believe Begley's in the KTV article. It's a short video, and they talked to both Begley and Festerson.
Yeah, and he's still just hoping for communication from the communication company. That was his quote. So yeah, we all are hoping for.
But also, just to remember what Begley said. Begley said that Verizon could put the pole in the middle of the street if they wanted to.
The way that the state law is written.
Yeah, which we know they'll never do that because
car drivers would lose it. But people walking or using wheelchairs or riding their bikes to school, there's a school like 3 blocks down the road from 55th and Poppleton. That's not a problem though.
Speaking of Begley, has anyone heard from him specifically about the Kellogg strike? I know he's a big union guy. Do you know if has Begley made a comment on supporting the union and the strike? Anyone?
I haven't seen anything about it.
I have not seen anything about that. I kind of feel like he supports unions
until it would make him look like anything contentious. He'll probably be like, "Ooh, I don't know," but he's a big union guy. I feel like I want to email him and be like, "When are you going to be out there? I'll go stand in the picket line."
Yeah, we saw the Kavanaugh brothers, sisters, Michaela and John Kavanaugh, the state senators. They were on the news out at the picket line supporting the workers. So it'd be interesting to get us. I don't know what city council district. We think that might be Palermo or Rowe.
I think it's Rowe.
Yeah.
No. I'm just seeing, I keep referring back to this tweet thread from Jane, but board president Mike Kennedy was telling the audience to get involved at the city level. The documents you've been seeing floating around out there are versions 1.0. They're not set in stone. We have public meetings every month. You can come and make a comment. But they're saying get involved at the city level about libraries. And so I think anytime if you email your city councilor and they say, oh, it's not our deal, be like, oh, well, the board chair or president, I'm sorry, said it's a city issue. And so you're my city representative. And so I would like to talk to you about this. Just, it's again, the not it game. Like, no, it's not, I don't know. Well, You work for the city, figure it out. You work for us, figure it out. So frustrating. Okay. I
So
think
if you guys got a minute, I just want to point out number 52
that,
from last week,
52. Oh, in the non-action items, we
which
usually
is
don't.
why I didn't read down this far. This is another example of R4 being asked to convert to an R5
Yes.
because people don't know that ADU is an option.
Mhm.
But this one is recommended for not approval because apparently the lot won't accommodate a duplex. When
Wow.
it's clear that the property is really just asking for an ADU conversion.
Huh.
But probably if they looked at the ADU definitions, you can't do the ADU under a certain size or over a certain size, which is like 50% of your primary residence,
Uh-huh.
which is why we need to adjust the ADU code to allow people to build up to, larger sizes.
Yeah.
If you look at 52B, it says communication in opposition, but I clicked it open and it's clearly a letter of support from the person, Jose Perez.
Yes. It's an appeal of the denial.
Yeah. And this Jose even uses middle housing in his language here. So
Nice.
the block in particular is interesting because I grew up like a block away from there, and you can probably see my childhood home from their backyard. But it's just another example of how we're not using the existing code, and the existing code is actually prohibitive in getting more housing into the built environments already.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things we talked about, I think maybe 2 weeks ago, was this Habitat for Humanity. They got a bunch of properties for $1. And someone brought up that several of the properties are too small under current zoning so that you literally cannot build a house on them now.
Because of the new setback.
Yeah.
Well, and that's been a problem at the city for a long time. It's just, it's stupid, even the city that has to do it whenever they go to build things. And they're not usually like small lots, they're Gifford Park sized lots and Benson sized lots,
Mhm.
It's just that now you can't build anything like that.
And so what Habitat is hoping to do is hoping to get multiple lots together and then come and replat. But part of the problem is some of those lots aren't together, and some of them, they'll be on 2 sides, and there's a house, an occupied house in the middle, and they're hoping for that one person in the middle either to wait them out but then the other option would be to have the city rewrite new zoning laws to allow for smaller houses to be built on these lots.
Yeah.
And I think the way around some of that is a PUR, but that usually works better if you have multiple lots, so you can do several.
Say what PUR is again.
I think it's called like planned unit redevelopment or something like that.
Okay.
But just an overlay you can ask for, and then they can waive some of the zoning requirements, or you just get different things you can do, basically setback wise.
Interesting. Does anyone know what the minimum width is for a house?
I'm looking as fast as I can.
Yeah. I wondered. I feel like I remember maybe some of these lots are like 40 feet wide or something like that. And that was what was making it prohibitive. I don't know. But yeah.
Yeah, but how close can you build to the lot line? I feel like my brother lives in New Orleans. He can reach out of his window and touch his neighbor's house. Like the houses are 6 inches apart, like a foot apart. So I think that's part of the problem too, is so 5 feet from
side to side setback. Okay. Interesting. So much to do with zoning reform. Isn't that exciting?
I get that we have to have space between houses, not just because people need room to breathe, but also if one house catches on fire, you want to give a bit of a fire break between the next house.
Mhm.
But we have this ridiculous rule where it's 35 feet back from the center of the street, yet my neighbor's houses on both sides of me are only 10 feet away. So, by the same logic that we only need 10 feet of breathing space side to side, why do we need 35 feet? My neighbor's house across the street is a full 65 feet according to Google Maps. Yet my neighbor right there is 10 feet. I can see right into her living room. So I wonder, like,
Depends on when they were built and what the code looked like when they were constructed, I guess. I don't know.
yeah,
And one of the Habitat properties was on a corner. So would that be 35 feet from both streets? I feel like that cuts into the lot quite a bit. If it's 35 feet from the street, and you live on a corner property, there'd be 2 streets you can't build 35 feet from.
I think it's whichever one your front door faces.
Oh, nice.
Planning Manny. Thank you, friend, for knowing so many things. Cool. Now I'm wondering what else in the
Non-action items for
Yeah.
next week.
oh, here's some more money to Deloitte. I feel like Commissioner Kavanaugh's gonna lose his mind if Deloitte gets any more money. Anyway, okay, cool. Well, that yeah, that was a good snag on the remainder of the agenda. Brian, anybody else have anything else they want to bring up, talk about, share with the class? All right.
So should we be doing anything about the library? Like, is it pretty much a done deal now, or?
I don't think it's a done deal. I think, okay, so let me find this survey. Have you taken the library survey yet, Ash?
I have not.
Okay, let me find that and put it in the chat. Because that is one way to be able to weigh in if you aren't able to, I'm gonna probably text it to you because I'm very bad at doing two things at once. Clearly, I'm just like, or yeah, Scott.
No problem.
But there is a survey. So if you have not taken the survey, everybody take the survey and give them input that way. Or again, show up at an actual in-person meeting, which they are not live streamed. Luckily, we have some live tweeters, so we can kind of follow along with what's going on. But yeah, give the library.
Put the notes.
Okay.
Put those in the
Oh,
chat.
okay. Here are, oh geez, the upcoming meetings, in case that is helpful. And then, yeah, we'll still get you the actual survey link too. But, and then I would say, honestly, like, I know that the city council says they have nothing to do with it, but I still don't think it's a bad idea to let your city councilor know that you support the libraries and you're horrified at the thought, even though there is no plan to privatize the libraries. Just reiterating to them as well that it's important to keep them as a public asset with public oversight, and that a donation is one thing, but a hostile takeover is another. Hostile takeover, that was Jane's terminology last week. But so I think the main thing is the survey and communicating with your, yeah, I mean, that's always my default, is try to just talk to city councilors, but the library board of trustees, communicate with them as well. And keep talking about it. I think that's another thing that's pretty helpful.
I'm also gonna.
Okay. Here we go. This Google Doc form.
Yeah, it's a Google Doc form.
Jeez. Okay. So there it is.
And I'm gonna DM it to you, Ash, on Twitter.
And then
Cool,
I don't
thanks.
know. I think that just continuing to talk about it, pay attention, tell other folks to take the survey and, give feedback. The main things are public oversight and public asset needs to stay better funded. That's, the other thing too, like when we're talking about these ARPA funds, I feel like there was something about that in this tweet thread too. That is being handled by city council, the ARPA money. And that is, again, email your city council person and say, hey, this American Rescue Plan Act money, it's like a bunch of dollars and they don't have it earmarked yet. So say, hey, what a perfect time to actually fund the library to an appropriate level, because it is a fact that we are woefully underfunded compared to the national average. I believe we're at like half of what the per capita spending is. So there's a lot of work to do. Yeah, I think that's what I know. Anybody else have any other ideas on ways to influence this? All right, good then.
We can all go check out 10 books real quick.
Yeah, make sure your library card is active, up to date. I don't know if that really makes a difference, but while we're talking about it, might as well make sure. And oh, I know, the one piece of feedback that I think is important is like this book bot recommendation. No, sure, modernize it in some ways, but like a lot of the people that rely on the libraries are not comfortable with technology. That's why they go to a library. So a librarian and paper things are very important, and librarians who can help folks navigate computers, very important. So we don't need any flipping book bots. It does not need to be just like a book check-in, check-out. Like it needs to be a place with humans for other humans. Public asset, public oversight for humanity. All right, I'm going to hit stop on the recording in case anyone says anything that they would like to have not on the record. Scott would really like you to look at our goofy dogs that are joining us for the remainder of our time this evening. All right, any final words, or I'm hitting stop? You sound like you're about to say something. No, okay, I'm hitting stop.